Hi, I'm Das Smith, and today's video is a 2-hour community chat about remote viewing and its related topics. It's just a fun, frank, and educational exchange of ideas, experiences, and viewpoints. Enjoy the video. Namaste. For those that are new, it's generally just an open chat tonight, so we're just going to have a chat, ask questions, share stuff, talk about RV in general. What we usually do is put your hand up using the reactions button. It's usually at the bottom of the screen for that. And just chime in then in talk. But if you're a little bit shy and you have a question and you don't want to talk, you can always type it into the chat window and one of us will try to pick it up and talk about it for you. So there is no real agenda this evening. It was just, it's been a while since we last met. So it's really just a catch up, see what people are doing, if they got any questions or anything they want to share. Bear with me. I got to keep letting people in here a second.
Is that Rick Hilliard there?
Sorry, what was that, Don?
Yeah, is that Rick Hilliard there?
It is, yeah.
Hey, turn on your mic, Rick. It's been a long time. He's muted, but
yeah. Unmute yourself, Rick.
My apologies. Greetings, everyone. How are we?
All right.
How you been, Rick? Long time no see, buddy.
Yeah, not too crash hot, I must admit. A couple of situations that cropped up with the health. Dragged off in an ambulance last week and into the hospital. So, yeah, bit of recovery situation for me.
Oh, good for you. At least you're here with us today.
Yeah. But again, it's a bit like Daz. He's going through some rough times.
What is this? There's health issues all of a sudden.
I don't know. Not happy with it, I'll tell you though. It's been one of the longest recovery periods that I've had ever. Ever. This viral thing knocked me on my back about, what was it? That's about over a month ago now.
Is this a COVID thing?
No, it's not. It's not. Because to actually see anybody here, you have to get pre-tested. So all of mine have been clear. So no, it's nothing to do with that. But there have been other people that I know that have this similar sort of thing, and they're saying exactly the same, that recovery is taking ages, absolutely ages.
Is this some Australia thing, or what's going on?
I think it's that thing that they put a gun to your head. You take this jab, or you got no job.
Oh,
All
right.
I reckon it comes down to that. I think we'll see a lot of this coming up in the next few years, where there's going to be like an after effect. But that's room for another project that we can all do.
Hang in there, buddy.
Yeah.
Well, that project's got to go in the subscribers only area, hasn't it? If we're going to talk about that stuff. Remember, this is going on YouTube.
Yeah, that will get you a shadow banned on YouTube faster than anything.
I didn't say any words. I just said gun to your head.
Okay, so let's start with some RV chat then. Dave, you had your hand up. Did you want to go first?
Yeah, real quick. So just meandering through some pools. I'm trying to keep the engine warm, and I had stumbled, and it really kind of pisses me off because every once in a while I'll do a target, and I'm like, God, of all the targets, I wish I would have dug deeper on that because it was interesting. And then once I got the feedback, so anyway, I had done the Mary Celeste recently, and like I said, I probably only put out about 16 pages, but basically I got these people like on these canoes. I felt like they were like trying to cross this margin of water or something. And I was just curious if anybody ran that, and if anybody got something more mundane. I mean, because I didn't get anything really crazy. It just seemed like these guys, I felt like these guys just kind of got off the boat. They figured out a way to kind of shimmy off the boat. Anybody else ever worked that one?
It was done years and years ago from memory. It'll be 20 years ago now. Is that right, Daz? We did that, or somebody?
It seems it's vaguely. I mean, I know the story that Mary said this, but I vaguely remember doing something deep in the past, but I can't remember what.
I mean, I got the whole section with the strait, like crossing the strait. I got all that, but I got like a sense of a disturbance in the water. And then like these guys were kind of finagling a way to get off of the boat using this small boat. I don't know if they were sending it back and forth or what. I don't know. I was just curious if anybody else got anything or remembered anything from that target.
I can try to have a look through my records to see if I can find anything. It would be deep in my past if I did it. Yeah, and I haven't seen anyone. I haven't seen anything, on the circuit from anyone else that's done something on that, because it's a pretty famous case, that one. Any of you guys? Anyone else seen any Mary Celeste?
Oh, I did it, and I didn't get anything very revealing. I just had fun being on a boat and was like, "Wow, I'm on a boat," and then didn't really explain why or what was going on. So.
I don't think anyone can help you on that yet, Dave. As I said, I'll have a quick look, but even if I got something, it probably wasn't that impressive because it must be about 20 years ago or something.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Hey, Don, you got your hand up if you want to go next.
Yeah, so really this is just a question for everybody because we've got some remote viewers here that, well, you've been around. You've been practicing, you've been working targets, and
RV horse.
And I don't know whether I've entered into a new stage or this is just something new, but I have a feeling that a lot of us are doing this, and that is we're just letting our freak fly a little bit more than usual. We're just being more confident and accepting of what we're getting, and we're putting it down, and we're not afraid to put it down. And just, I don't know. Tell me, are you guys?
I'm extremely impressed, Don, with the remote viewers that are coming out of like this generation, like you included. To me, it's unbelievably impressive as a whole from what I've seen.
I think there's a confidence developing phase where you're not really sure and you don't know what you're doing, but then you just go with it. You just fly with it. You fly with it. And I don't know, it's like, I feel like it's getting better. I feel like I'm still experimenting with this thing, but I'm just going with it, Anyway, I just wanted to.
You need to slow down, Don. You're fine. You don't need to get any better. Just like that.
I mean, you've been doing that too, right, Dave? I mean, I've seen your stuff. You really. It's
a growing process to me. I feel like there's
really
no stop button. As long as you keep wanting to push the boundaries, and a lot of that's falling flat in your face. I mean, I got the project we just did with Daz. I wish I would have done a lot better, but I look at it as like experimental. And the way I look at it too is, at least you have something to reference if you get thrown into something like that down the road. At least I'll have something to compare it to. But not now. Most of the time, it either it works or it just falls apart somewhere along the line. But yeah, what's good is getting better. What's good is always getting better.
I don't know whether it's getting good or just, you don't care. You just want to get the story that you're getting and put it down. That's what I think it comes down to. You just, okay, I'm getting this, I'm putting it down. I don't know. There's some magic in there, but you gotta go with it a little bit.
So basically, what you're saying, Don, is you're stopping that self-editing.
Yeah.
So and therefore you're letting go more.
Because I am letting go. I am letting go more. Yeah. That's the phrase I guess I'm looking for.
That's one of the first things that a lot of the students do is they self-edit. And when I teach them the RV process, you have to get it into them to let it go. And that's what it is. It's self-editing. Oh no, I might be wrong. No, that can't be this.
Yeah,
so
right,
you're thinking,
right.
You're analysing, you're processing, and that's when you start going off target. So when you're letting go and just being a conduit for this information, It's more fluid.
Yeah, really.
Can I,
Deb?
can I just say something, Don?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's me, Rose. Yeah, you know, I had taken a break and I wasn't doing any RVing for a couple of months because I just kept seeing the Ukraine, and every time I do a reading, it was just about the war. So I thought, I'm taking a break. And so Daz put up a fun target, and I thought I'd give that one a shot. The one from Chat GPT. And it's interesting because I did get a water feature, and the ideogram kept drawing me back to this water feature. But then there was lurking this subject, and he was sort of quietly there. And as I began to have a look at him, oh my goodness, he looks like a gray alien. And I felt his head. I don't know why, but he was dressed like Sherlock Holmes. And I started to think, well, I didn't think till after I finished the RV, because it was pretty nonchalant. I wasn't shocked about it. It just, there he was. I felt his head, and it was like squishy. And then he didn't like me touching his head. But he had a sense of humor. He was kind of smiling and realized that, you know, what I must be feeling. And so
you went with it.
I went with it. He's wearing glasses over top of his large black eyes. He's got a Sherlock Holmes hat.
So you were trusting your perceptions.
I tell you, when I felt him, I could feel he was like latex. It's soft. He was there, and yet he was trying to be nondescript, like he says. And so I probed him and asked him what he was doing there. And he says he's observing, and he showed me all kinds of cool ways of observing. Like I looked through his eyes, and it was like, whoa, a lot of information, like extra information that you don't see. Like I could see auras, and I could hear all the thoughts, and I could see all kinds of interesting wave trails. And he started to tell me he was observing the relationship between DNA and social behavior. And I thought, okay, but I thought, I'm going to do a whole new ideogram and forget this one and see what happens. I'll do a new one because I obviously am not on target, right? So in the new one, I had a couple new subjects, possibly Daz's new grandchild and its mother, but he was there again. The alien definitely seemed to want to make himself known in my reading. And
cool.
I afterwards pondered, and it sort of came to me that, you know, we were discussing Harvey in our last meeting, and we have discussed this hitchhiker phenomenon. So that occurred to me that it might have been hitchhiking from our last meeting, and that it might be Harvey, but it was a very tall alien.
All right, hold on a second here, Rose. Yeah. I really wanted to get back to this issue of your confidence through remote viewing, and Jimmy, I know, has got something to say on this.
Yeah, so I just wanted to let you know, like, I just went with it. I submitted it. I don't know what the heck it was, but that's, you just got to go with it. I don't know what else to do, really.
Yeah, Jimmy, you've been sort of like in that groove. We're going with, whatever you get, right?
Yeah. Angela Ford told me that. Ed May told me that. And Daz, I mean, he's the original guy who said, I don't care. I'm just throwing data that I get on paper or the whiteboard.
There seems to be a step there. There is definitely a step. I mean, like, just going with it. Yeah. Versus
for me, the change came when I ended up doing loads of remote viewing for work, and it just became work, and it was just like, I want to get to the end of this session and do my work, and that I don't care about the outcome. I care about finishing this task.
Yeah,
and that's a good way to not give too many shits about the content of your session.
Yeah.
So
those things that I was taught, you don't invest in the outcome.
Yeah, it's more like you're being provided little bits of a story and you are the story taker. Okay, you're not making it up. You're not trying to envelop the thing. You're just taking the story down and whatever. It's anyway, I just thought that there was a really interesting observation, and I wanted to put that out there. Back to you, Des.
No, it is a great observation, Don, and I think it's a stage we all go through. I think I've talked about it in the past. I've said, for me, it was several years in, and I just got to the stage, and we use the comments on Discord a lot, where we say, you get to a stage where you don't give a fuck for
I remember you saying that.
use of language, and you end
NFG.
up and you trust yourself as well. You trust that. Yeah, you literally just trust, and you have belief in yourself. So no matter how weird the data is that comes in, you're just there to report it. You're not even there to think about it. Really.
Yeah, right. I guess on the one hand, when you're a beginner, it's sort of like you're trying to get the information, but at this stage, it's more like you're receiving the story and you're just getting it down is what it is. Whatever it is, it could be wrong. You're totally wrong, but the thing is, this is what you're going to do. All right. And
for a long time, Don, I was really chasing the interest. I just wanted to have, like, first, at least I just was expecting an interesting target. And what happened is, I don't care what it is necessarily. I'm more interested in how well I could describe it. I just stopped caring about what it is. Everything has to be interesting to some degree. Because in the beginning, I was so obsessed with something, taking a ride on this consciousness joyride train,
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
But if you're remote viewing a bank, it's not much of a ride. So, but then eventually it got to be too, also though, you remote view a lot of cool things, and then you're kind of, something shifts. I don't know, but I think it's individual. I think some people are just, they have their own individual kind of hurdles. But that was mine. I was always chasing an interesting target.
Let me just ask you, everybody, really, when you're going through your session, do questions come to your mind? Do you write these questions down and then try to get answers to the questions? Anybody?
No, because if you start that process, well, I don't. If you start that process, you're going down the AOL trail. You start questioning, analysing, you then start to shoot off target. If you just be the conduit that you're there to be and report the information that's been requested, I think you'll find yourself more on target than not.
I don't know, Daz, you were shaking your head yes when I was saying this.
I always question, and when I mentor, I tell the people that you're Sherlock Holmes. Your job is to gather data. There's a case that needs solving. To solve it, you need as much information as possible. I'm not saying you have to analyze it to try to guess what the target is, but if you're getting sketches and bits of data come through, it's your job. It's not a passive process. The RV process. We're not waiting. It's not like classical psi where you wait for the information to come to you. It comes to you for that spark of the ideogram process, but then you're the one that has to get you're the one that has to work to get the rest of the information.
Yeah, I think I'm in that camp.
I constantly move around.
Yeah, I'm in that camp, definitely. Yeah.
Do you feel like you've been sort of trained by having a monitor, that the monitor helped you to learn?
I've never in 26 years done a monitor's RV session.
I find I don't think to ask any questions because I'm kind of deep into the viewing, and I just can't sort of ask myself. I might have to write them down in advance.
But what happens if you get an obscure piece of data, or you get a sketch or something, and it's just there on its own? You can't just let that
and then
fall.
I go back to the ideogram, I reprobe, I try to
see. No, if I get a piece of data, a word or a sketch, I will say, and I'll put it in brackets so I know I'm asking myself a question to delineate it from the rest of the data. But I will say, what's this? What does it mean? What's its relationship?
Okay.
Why is it here?
I don't know how to do that yet.
Say, what does this word mean?
Yeah, Rose, you just do it. Okay, You back away, you look at your data, and you start writing down, questions. You just do that, and you'll be at the next step.
Well, I kind of did that with this alien guy. I asked myself, is this a costume? And I put, it's not a costume. Yeah, so I'm sort of starting to do that, but it's sort of hard to remember to do it. Yeah.
It is, but you could have you could have a little sheet of ideas and cues by the side of you. Ask this, do this, move here. At the end of RV sessions, you could have like a little list. And I got one that I give to some of my students. It's like a little thing, things to look at before you finish your RV. Have you done this? Have you done a summary? Have you gone back through your RV session, looked at any words that jumped out at you? All that kind of thing. So you can have that little crib sheet for yourself. There's not a problem. There's no rules to this.
And
I was trained by the great Paul H. Smith. Don't you guys want to hear my opinion on this? It's got to be worth 10 pounds of gold here.
Oh, yeah, we got to hear
Write this down. Write this down. I do want to say, though, as it pertains to this, I will say in stage 4, you do ask questions, but you ask them in a particular way. For instance, at least the way I was trained, what they found that works a lot, and especially when I was first getting to navigate stage 4 personally, Paul told me that skip, or this is what they kind of used to use as a prompt. Show me what's most noteworthy there, and for some reason, or show me what's most noteworthy of the target. And especially initially, when you're first kind of getting used to those waters, I would get an instant image, a flash image or something, and something about the way you ask that, prompt that question. It's not leading. It's not giving you a binary this or that or whatever. So, but I don't ask like, how old is it? Do you get it? Because so much of it is just bumping into the information just by sketching. All this information just shakes that tree, and then all this information kind of falls out. But that's all.
Mm.
To follow on from what David was talking about there, when I ask questions, I don't ask high level questions. So it's questions that I can then write stage 2 type descriptive information. Mm-hmm. So like if I draw a sketch of something and it's it has no context for me, I will then either ask myself a question, what is this, or I'll literally just annotate it and prompt it, and I'll try then to get what I class as colors, temperatures, tastes, all that kind of stuff. So very low level data to try to work out what that is, rather than just leave it hanging in midair kind of thing.
Okay. All right. Well, that's everything that I wanted to talk about.
Dimi, you have your hand up. You want to go next?
Yes, thank you. The other day I asked you, I've worked set target from your monkey targets, and the target was character. It was Lawrence of Arabia between like 10 years, I think. So I've asked you in the Discord, what would you expect when you when you move above the target, like 50 meters away or feet or whatever, and you said you're going to see the top of the person. But if the focus of the target is a period of time, what would you see? Exactly the top of the person? Because it was Lawrence Arabia between 10 years, let's say. I don't recall exactly what
I guess it depends where you landed and what you're looking at in general, at what period in time. That's probably a bad target with a 10-year period on it.
Maybe not 10, maybe 5.
Yeah, I can't. To be honest, I made those targets like 15 years ago, so I can't even remember what's in there. To be honest, I should revise them. But it depends where you are. But you can. I don't know if you've done the Lorry tools. I don't use them myself, but Laurie and Lynn have all these kind of extra tools where you can move about in time and try to find your location. For example, you could do a timeline. You could say to yourself, okay, where am I in time of this target? Maybe do a timeline and see if you can get an indicator there. It's hard to say. It's a bit of a broad target, that one.
Yeah, I did also that, but I wanted to give myself some points because I've seen like Arabic buildings and I thought it was something there, but I was not exactly sure. So I wanted for me to take something and to say, okay, you have something from the target, or whatever. So that's it. That's why my question.
Did you
Thank
move around the Arabic buildings? Inside,
Oh,
outside,
yes,
behind,
but
under, in?
I was so very attracted by those that I stuck there. So
And again, sometimes I would say to myself, and as I said, I do this in brackets. So I know that it's not data that I'm asking myself to get more data. I would, if I found a building like that, I would say, what's the, because RV is all about relationships as well, especially when you're on your stage 3, stage 4 stuff. How do things connect together? So I would say to myself, what does this, what relevance is this structure to this target, to see what that would kind of bring
question.
out.
Yes, I completely forgot. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yes.
I don't know if you guys ever see the crypto view and stuff, but Edward Riordan, his entire style of RV is just asking question after question of himself, and then his data answering those questions.
Yeah, he sort of like channels himself or whatever, to.
Yeah, it's an interesting approach. I'm not as bad. I don't go as far as he does, and I bracket it and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, his approach is literally just question after question after question, for pages on pages.
Hey, Des, you mentioned something about the Lynn and Laurie tools. You got a link for that? That sounded like something I want to take a look at.
I've got their manuals and I've seen their stuff, but it's proprietary information. So I
okay.
Yeah, I can't give you what I have, but they might talk about it. I know Lynn and Laurie have they have videos on YouTube every like 3 months or something. They have meetings. I think Henny and a few of the other people have taken classes with Lynn and Laurie, so they might be able to point you in that area. But yeah, they have made up all these I think stage 6 tools or something that they call them, that they use to do all kinds of varying bits.
Yeah, Henny, do you have is that an open thing, or is it sort of like behind their paywall?
I'm going to check if there is anything in the openly available conversations between me and Laurie, and I'm going to send it to you. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Don, also TRV has a lot of tools. From what I've seen, basically, it seems like anything after stage 4.5, you could pretty much develop your own tools. I mean, I think stage
Absolutely.
4.5 is a good threshold. I think
stage
to me
6
personally,
in TRV is not the you must do clay modeling. It's do whatever the hell you want. And if you want to bring in tools from other
I've seen it work
methodologies,
well.
like I do the TDS.
Yeah, Brett
gingerbread
Stewart has an
person
excellent manual on that.
And
covers a lot of those
stage
different
6.
probes.
Yeah, you can do portrait drawing. You can do interpretive dance. Really, you actually can. You can do whatever you want.
Interpretive dance.
It's for all of the stuff where you're asking slightly narrower questions, basically.
It's basically the part of the TRV session where I drop my TDS knowledge. It's wonderful.
It is a way of just creating your own tools, Don. That's something we've kind of done a little bit when we're doing like the crypto view and stuff, because and it is kind of front loaded in that, for example, if we know we're doing a crypto target, one of 40,000 or whatever it is, we kind of know we're looking at crypto, which is generally not they're non-physical, they're digital, kind of, they exist as zeros and ones kind of thing. So we've all had to develop our own kind of ways about doing things. Like, for example, we all try to get the logo, so we've all had to kind of develop our own way to try to sketch and describe a logo and a brand. And then, for example, we also all try to get the technology itself, bearing in mind, this technology is usually quite abstract in the fact that it's not physical in most cases. It's literally just algorithms and code. I've developed a new approach in that, where I actually, and I think it's quite useful, I actually key myself with, go to the consciousness of the crypto and have a conversation with it.
Talking to the crypto itself.
Talking to the crypto itself, its own consciousness. And I'm finding that each one has a kind of slightly different flavor, male or female, young or old.
I like that.
It has different personalities and they have different colors that they like, all that kind of stuff. That's quite interesting. That's working quite well. And we also, we've developed these other tools where we try to I use ideograms, where we try to get the market flows of where we think, you know, the market action of this is going to be over the next 1 to 5 years. So we are actually developing those tools, you know, literally on the fly. And I think as remote viewers, you kind of, you know, it's not stagnant. You have to kind of work out what tools you could develop that was going to work with you, really, depending on the different targets.
Well, I think the big takeaway from this, what you just said, was you were talking to the crypto itself. That is like, we're surrounded with mental energy, and cryptos has mental energy just like everything else around us.
Well, I don't know if it's real or if it exists. It just might be a way of me, you know, a bit like
it doesn't matter if it exists. You can talk to anything. You can get an abstract concept and tell it to come and become a person and have a conversation with you. PJ back in the day did a whole series of experiments where I think she called it like a cultural exchange of consciousness or something. I'm sure I've phrased that not quite right, but she was like seeing what's it like to be a building and just having a conversation with a building.
This is huge.
You know, and
this is really important right there. That's really revealing something about the universe that people aren't paying attention to.
Well, I think what it says is that all of what we do in remote viewing is getting some kind of hidden data layer, and we're cramming a lens over it. We're making it conform to the questions that we ask it. Right? So
yeah,
there's always going to be some bias and some implicit structure in the questions we ask, maybe just because we're doing CRV or because we're doing whatever methodology, right?
Well, because we're human and we're talking we're talking to non-human things.
Well, we're talking to what we would regard as non-sentient things sometimes, right? But depending on what questions we ask is going to filter and color the data that we get back.
Pretty cool.
Still in kindergarten. We're still learning.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I haven't tried it, Don, but I don't see why I couldn't try the same approach, like in a normal RV session. So let's say the target, you know, I felt I had a structure at the target, you know, I'm writing down structure on the sheet of paper, and you write down all your usual S2 stuff. It's hard, it's solid, feels like it has multiple layers, all this kind of thing. Now, I don't see any reason why I couldn't say, put in brackets and say, okay, now let's move into the consciousness of the building. What does it feel like? You know, what's it being used for? Kind of, you know, is it happy in the way it's being used? You know, is it getting on with life forms using it?
This is like another step, really. It's like I have stuff down in my sheet. Quite honestly, you run out of time and that's it. You just can't do anymore. You always want to do more. But the thing is, I'm starting to realize I can move my consciousness into some of these abstract shapes that I'm drawing.
Yeah, yeah. As I said, and this is what I mentioned, you know, you are the investigator. It's not for you to sit there and wait for the information to come for you, because you're, you know, because you know, my route was controlled remote viewing. So you're in control. You're the passenger. You know, you're the driver here. You have to get the information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
And yeah, there are loads of tools out there. I know HRVG had loads of like location-based tools as well. I think Dick made up, or I don't know if Henny and the other guys know this as well, where they use triangulation to, you know, to find locations on maps and stuff like that. So
yes,
every methodology has all these different lots of tools. I think SRV, and you can get the SRV manuals online from Courtney Brown. They have lots of advanced training tools in manuals online there that some of them might be of use as well, you know.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah, excellent. Dave, you got your hand up?
Yeah, this is about when you're interrogating the subconscious mind of a person at a target. And I don't know if this is even kind of a provable thing, but I want to know what you've gotten out of it, because I have asked. There's a difference when I ask somebody at the target a question, and I go into their mind and ask them a question, and there's a difference when I ask myself a question about the target. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like my own objective, you know, and then I want to know their perspective, and I go into their mind. Okay, so when I did Pat Price, I asked Pat Price who killed him, and he didn't know. he was like, and I don't know if that was because, maybe you get up to the end of your life and that's all you know or whatever. But I'm sure most of us know the kind of the mysteries around his death. But he at the time he didn't know, he was in the emergency room, whatever, go medical issues, whatever. But when I asked because he didn't know, then I queued up myself and I asked myself the same question and I got an answer. So what I want to know is that how it works for you on something like that?
Okay. You ask yourself a question. Go back to that again. How did that work?
I'm saying when I'm asking the subconscious mind of a person at the target a question, like, hey, who killed you? Well, he was poisoned. He didn't, up until the moment he died, that's, from my perspective, it seems like that's all he knew. So he never got to, just like us, he didn't know either,
Right.
But then when I kind of asked myself, like, who killed this man? Then I got to ping back,
Oh, I
so
see.
what I'm asking is if that's the kind of reflection you get in the stage 4 interrogation of the subconscious mind, is that how it would work with you in a situation like that? Or have you run into anything like that where somebody, you're interviewing like a person that's about to pass or whatever, and they have a limited knowledge? I'm just curious as what it's running through your filters like, if it's a similar experience. All you guys.
Okay,
and gals.
The only thing that I can contribute here is that when I was taking classes with Pam Coronado, she was the psychic investigator that had a television show, and she teaches classes on using psychic ability to for murders and crimes and all that. All right, so when you take a class with her, forget this business about having a safe remote viewing target. You are thrown into the deep end. All right. So anyway, she was saying, there's channelers attending her classes, and they're, the mediums and whatever. And her advice was, do not ask the deceased what happened to them. Okay. That's a bad strategy because they have their own, issues that they, still have. You as the investigator, do the investigative work, build up your case, and, don't be asking the deceased what happened.
I've got to agree with that from doing cowboy sessions, where a great deal of the time you're talking to people, or whatever we're doing, it looks like talking to people, and very frequently you'll ask them something and they either don't know, or they'll give you the PR answer that they would give to another person they were speaking to. So they won't tell you the truth. They don't even necessarily know the truth, or sometimes
they're guarded.
They can't admit the truth to themselves.
Sometimes they're guarded. They don't want to tell
worst
you.
Person to ask.
Yeah.
So what we do there, given there's no rules in cowboy, is we say, okay, well, put that person to one side, and now you as a remote viewer move to the event and tell me what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So you
I just want to say too,
contacts.
And I just want to say this real quick. When we were submitting this project for the Biggs project, they were trying to get information about upcoming things and all this and that. They asked me to put in the proposal like future stock tips, shit like that, and I refused to do it. I said, I'm not doing that. I said, that's it. And to be honest with you, I felt like if we made this work, it would be such a big deal. And you want to taint it with something so trivial. And also, why the hell would they care what the lotto numbers are in Florida next Wednesday? But anyway, I'm sorry. But
yeah, David, we myself and Deborah Lynn Katz put together a proposal for that as well.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah.
We had quite a few meetings with them, with Com Keller, because we weren't happy with the way that they changed the whole thing, and they didn't want it to be a using RV to find proof of life after death kind of thing. They then added this, and also tell us the next big catastrophe we think is happening in America in the next 5 years kind of thing. And so we have huge issues with when they added all that kind of stuff in there. It's like, this feels entirely wrong in what they're doing with this.
Yeah, I refuse to do it. I didn't put it in there. I just said you take it for what it is, or don't take it. But I'm not gonna. I'm happy enough the dead are talking to me, if that's even what's happening. I don't. I don't want to insult them by asking what's going on with the Dow next month. So
yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure we're talking to the dead. I'm not even sure mediums are talking to the dead, to be honest. But
yeah, I don't know.
Who knows? We just don't know. This is just like a huge big smorgasbord of all different things, all overlapping. And we just haven't had enough research. We just don't know enough about it yet. But to talk about your question as well, I sense when I'm talking to, or when I think I'm talking to a life at a target, there is a slightly different flavor to it than there is when I'm asking myself a question about stuff. It's very subtle, but there's a very slight difference there.
Yeah, you could tell when you're in their sub or when you're in your own space. Yeah.
It's, as I said, though, it's minute in its difference, but yeah, it's got a slightly different flavor or smell to it. I can't quite tell you what the perceptible nature of that is.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, excellent. So, anyone got any questions?
Can I pop in with something more?
Go for it, Demi.
I usually when I'm looking something from a life form, which probably it's mostly is human, but you never know, I merge with the life and try to view from his perspective or his eye. That means it's not necessarily that I'm in possession of the truth, but at least I can feel what it feels at that point. So that's my approach on life form. Usually I try to merge with them. So
yeah, because you have the objective truth, you have the truth as it pertains to that, seen through the eyes of that person, you have the truth as the viewer, and you got to make sense of all that as far as like what's right, because that person may have a really disturbed outlook of whatever's going on, and it may not actually reflect the
not necessarily the truth. Yes, exactly.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Well, that's a question that I was asking when I was seeing this alien as well, when he told me that he was researching human behavior. And the AOL question came to me, well, how would I know if he was lying to me? Even with telepathy, he could say anything he wanted, and I wouldn't even be able to prove he exists. And so, yeah, getting the truth, even with telepathy, you can't just assume it. Like,
yeah, you can't trust. To be honest, you can't trust any of your information in remote viewing, and not unless you have good, solid feedback to be able to assess your accuracy. I mean, me and Naeem can attest to this because we did a target this week for crypto view. Honestly, he's laughing because it's such a bad target. You guys that work, you guys that worked the target for me, the Chat GPT, that was such a good target against the one that we just did on crypto viewing. And I'm taking the mick out of it a little bit. I hope they don't mind me if they see this. I think it'd be all right to talk about this as well. We can talk about it, can't we, Naeem? They won't mind.
I think it should be all right.
Okay, so so I want to say from the outset, both Naeem, myself, Edward, and Dick did the most amazing RV sessions, probably really amazing RV sessions. We absolutely nailed the target. I drew the most amazing sketches. Dick did like 40 pages of going back through the entire history of this target in huge detail, even naming who this person was. I didn't name this person, but we all had amazing data. And then we found out what the target was, and the target was it was a news story for 1997 that was tasked to us, and this was, I guess, a woo-woo type target, and it was some stupid news story about this alleged doctor that was looking at the skull of Napoleon Bonaparte, and he claimed he found an alien implant in the skull of Napoleon Bonaparte. It literally only took me 5 minutes of internet research to find out that this was a complete fake story. So all four of us as remote viewers got absolutely amazing data. I even drew the skull of a person with an object inside their brain, causing them all kinds of problems and all this kind of stuff in huge detail. Dick, as I said, did 40 pages talking about this tyrant in history. He felt like he was like a Roman leader, all this kind of stuff, and even named Napoleon Bonaparte. We all got amazing data, and it turns out it was on a target that pretty much is it's fictional. It's just a hoax article from 1997 that was in some kind of obscure, stupid Mickey taking paper.
So getting back to our previous thing, were you like all remote viewing the fake story?
Possibly, or the fake story, or feedback, or even because someone actually tasked that to us. It's not anyone within crypto viewing. We had a person within crypto viewing who actually set up the target, the project manager, but the tasks come from outside crypto viewing. We may have been having some kind of direct kind of telepathic or other communication with the tasker who might actually believe that it is a real
Wow.
And also with that one, the images that were in the article, like they're real images. Like there's a real image of a real chip made by a real company. There's a real skeleton. So it's like, those are your feedback. It's like, yeah, your remote viewer might describe the chip. You know what I mean? Doesn't mean it was in Napoleon's head, but it was a part of the feedback, right? So
I'm going to show you my RV session.
Yeah, it was like a smorgasbord.
That's the thing, Daz. Like, what is if you develop a story of something, and it's real enough to come up with some kind of a like a cohesion of minds as to what it might be. It's almost like it exists on some reality to remote view or whatever. Like the project we just did, I felt, and again, sometimes you just miss target, but for 9-10 remote viewers to have that kind of result, I think it was something else. But I think that, to me, it almost felt like we were passing the ball around as far as what this target should look like. Like we all had to come up with a consensus of what this may look like and then put it out. But again, who knows, whatever. But yeah, that doesn't surprise me. I mean, that's the thing that's what worries me about other, some of these other people's kind of alien shit is like, we don't know, man. I mean, this could be all bullshit.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, Inga wrote articles on this way back in the 90s where he said, you have to, if you're looking at aliens, all that kind of stuff, he did it himself as well. So, he has a bit duality in that. But you do have to have solid feedback, because although we're reporting it, and as I said, we all got amazing data on this, and I can share mine and show you my stick man with the implant.
Oh God, I'm sure Dick's got all kinds of charts, and he broke out all these tools and shit. It's like, it's all garbage, Dick. It's all not real.
So here's mine, look, showing you, and I thought it was a tumor. You see, that's why I put that. I even I looked inside its head, and I even said, this person's a bit like a serial killer, which Napoleon Bonaparte did kill hundreds of thousands of people, in his wars and stuff. So yeah, we had all this interesting data, and that it was all off this sketch of a person I knew they were unhealthy, and there was a problem with their head which was causing depression. So all this was like, the red was telling me it was a medical condition, the gray was telling me it was depression. Yeah, as I said, so we all had amazing data and then we saw the target data, and it's pretty much for a target that actually doesn't exist. Now, as we're discussing, we don't know where that data come from, what we're remote viewing, but it just goes to show that we can, as remote viewers, most possibly remote view stuff that isn't physical, things that are myths.
Can I just say something, Daz, about the Chat GPT viewing? Because, okay, I saw a water feature, but it was weird. It was like a composite water feature. Like I saw this flat water, and then I also had data that showed me pent up energy being released, but I didn't see a waterfall. Not once did I see a waterfall. I saw the composite parts, like as if I was seeing how the computer put it together. And, some of the other data too, I was thinking, like, this is like when I looked through the alien's eyes and I saw all this information, I thought maybe the alien is a metaphor for the computer. and I'm looking through the computer's eyes, because you could see a lot of information looking through the computer's eyes. So the way that information came to me is very interesting. You know, it's not the same as a quote real target where you get like the real landscape, like I did with the Stonehenge. I got the landscape and I had large, you know, I had real things, whereas this was more like a composite image of a water feature, even in my ideogram. That's what, so it was a great learning experience because of that, to help me learn how I see those kinds of abstract targets. So it was fantastic.
It's all great fun, all very experimental. You know, as we all discuss every time we meet, you know, we're all kind of students. None of us are masters. None of us knows how this works. So by doing these experiments, we're getting there.
Well, one of the interesting things in that that implant in the head thing with Napoleon, like Edward had, this is like a fraud. Dick had a part in the session where he drew a skull and said, they think someone put an implant in here, but it might be a myth. I saw a doctor doing biological stuff and got like, there's a fraud or there's something fake or there's something,
wow,
he lied or did something wrong about this. So even though we were getting stuff, there was like an underlying knowing of like there's some kind of fraud or something's up with this. But yeah, it was really interesting.
Edward picked that up, that it was a fraud, you said? He got a sense of that?
He did say,
yeah, Edward said straight up,
fake.
Like, this is fake.
But let me guess, was Dick like, no, absolutely not?
No, I think Dick got pulled into the person. So Napoleon was the person who they got the skull. We're looking at the skull, but the actual target was a doctor who was looking at the remains. That was the actual target. So Dick kind of realized that Napoleon had to do with it, and he got sucked into describing Napoleon, all this historical stuff, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's a thin line. I will say though, I have caught BS targets on occasion. Like I'll do it and I'll be like, oh, this is BS, and then it ends up kind of being some bullshit target. But not always. I think it's, you know, it could be an individual thing, and it could be just if you get lucky, you kind of can sense the underlying BS behind it.
Yeah, and this one's tricky because there may be a real doctor that looked at Napoleon's remain. There may be there was a picture of a doctor, his name, his university. So some of the aspects of the target are real. So it's not completely fake. Mm-hmm. It's not like a completely made up story. So you put remote viewers on it.
But don't you feel like once it's been published, it's out there for you?
Yeah, I guess once someone puts it together, when someone kind of puts it together, it becomes organized. I think a remote viewer can perceive it. That's what I think.
But that's a lot to put on a viewer, though.
People have believed, because other people have believed in it, right? So now it has a little power.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. But yeah, that one was a whole bunch of things. The chip is real. Napoleon's skeleton is real. The doctor is real, but the story's fake. You know what I mean?
So anyone else have any questions, guys, or anything? Because I don't think I see anything in chat right now. Bear with me, look at the chat.
I'm just sort of like thinking about how you're getting these perceptions about like this chip and stuff in somebody's head and all that, and then off to the side, you have this feeling that it's fake. That is really interesting.
Yeah, I think we all had separate elements of that. I was going through it, and I, you know, I even said to the tasker, I said, "Oh, I don't really want to do this. It doesn't feel right."
Hmm.
And I just kept getting lots of depressed. You know, I felt really depressed with it. Everything I was coming at was like really dark and depressed. It just didn't feel right as a target. So we all interpreted it in different ways. But yeah, Edward literally clear out in the middle of his session said, "This feels fake."
Sometimes I feel like you can get a sense of how it's going to turn out in the end. Like if it's just going to go, I mean, you may not know if you're on target or whatever, but you just may have a sense of like how, if you're going to feel good about it in the end or not so good. Yeah. But again, it's unique to the person. One more quick question. Hey, I got your desk. Did you guys ever, have you ever got a sense that you were remote viewing beings, like archonic beings? Like Dennis talks about this a little bit. Like beings that are literally feeding off of negative emotion. You guys ever run into anything like that?
I have into them plenty of times, but I've never reviewed one.
Anyone else? met anything like that?
Well,
You're talking about
don't get me started.
I think Dennis calls them archons, is it?
Yeah, archonic beings. Yeah, archons. Yeah.
I just call them entities. Don't give them too much credit.
Okay, these are incorporeal things.
Yeah. There are a lot out there. I mean, I did write a book on them, or interactions with them many years back.
Did you? What? Are you talking about the surfing the psychic internet? You talking about?
Yeah, that's what that book is about. Is me battling with those type of entities.
Yeah. I remember. Yeah.
But that's a whole different life for me. I've never experienced anything like that within RV. It's almost like, because I was told, don't show it.
I've got it.
Yeah, because I was told and taught that RV is, like no nonsense, do it this way, this approach. I have a subdivision. My RV doesn't deal with anything weird. Nothing comes in like that. The target can't hurt me. I can't hurt the target. All that kind of stuff doesn't exist. But once I go into my old life of classical psychic techniques and channeling and working within a circle group, all that stuff exists in that realm. Absolutely, 110%.
I've had one in a remote viewing session once, where I was tasked the next publicly acknowledged landing of an astronaut on Mars. My session started off like, oh, it's red, it's dusty, it's unbelievably boring. My AI is, I want to go home. This place sucks. Super dull. I AOL'd Mars. It was Mars. And then I saw one of these things and I just ignored it because, occasionally they just pop up and you just, not now. I'm working, But from the point that I saw it and dismissed it, my data went completely crazy, and I ended up basically describing the plot of the Stargate TV show. And all my data had this really unreal feeling to it. Nothing quite made sense. None of the dimensionals quite fit into 3D space. Everything was screwy, for want of a better word. And so this thing showed up. And from that point in my session, the whole session went to shit. And obviously I'd not dealt with that properly, I guess. But that's the only time I think I've had one show up in a remote viewing session that actually really affected the session.
Wow.
Certainly when you go and do woo-woo targets, when you do aliens and space and all that stuff, there's a lot more of that stuff. Like if you go to the moon, there's lots more of that stuff out there. Like you're not going to run into that remote viewing Central Park and the Eiffel Tower.
Right.
We did,
Page
Page
109, if they're interested in Daz's book.
It's a good book. He doesn't advertise. It's a good book. Liam, what were you saying, Liam?
I got it here. It's a great book, actually. Surfing the Psychic Internet.
I gotta get this book.
I bought it. It is very good. Don't let him turn you off to it. Liam, what were you saying, buddy?
I was saying when we did the Gobek Tepe target, that's the only target. Well, not the only, but in that one, I got some Archon type data. I wouldn't say I encountered one or anything like that, but I saw things, and the data that went along with it was like along the lines of Archons or fallen ones, that whole type of theme. Yeah, that one, I guess that's esoteric and a real target.
It's good to know that. I appreciate you guys telling me that, because I just want to make sure I'm not the only one getting shit like this on occasion.
I think I encounter them more in targets. I mean, not in a solid sense, mind, but I have encountered something like that when I tried to do the RV lottery winning 100 million targets, but I don't class it as being an Archon. I class it as being some kind of weird living trickster thing that does something to fuck up my RV so that I can't win 100 million.
Yeah, to me it's a guy, and he usually stands in front of me like this and puts his hand out. That's what it looks like for me.
There's definitely
any kind of gambling.
Yeah, because most of us here can hit pretty much most of the targets we do on a regular basis. Yet we try to make huge amounts of money from ourselves, and it just goes completely tits up.
When I did one for Jimmy, I said, Jimmy, from what is happening, it looks like I'm what's I could tell by the behavior of the session. It looks like this has something to do with gambling. I'm remote viewing you now because that's what happens. Like, it's like I get kicked out of the target and I just start remote viewing the tasker. I said, this is you sitting in front of the TV. This is you drinking gin. This is you.
Yes, I agree with you because I also learned from Angela Ford from psychic techniques and stuff like that. And I think sometimes there's a slight overlaps, but not purposely done, because I've run into problems a couple times where I don't know what I saw in an impression when I was trying to remote viewing something. It was around stage 3. And then I got a visual of some, whatever this thing is. I don't have a name for anything, but it was, I got to be honest with you. They asked me a question. The question was, can you see me? And it was like somebody was talking to me. I said, yeah, what are you? And it thought for a few minutes and it said, well, I'm an angel. And I said, an angel? That's the ugliest looking thing I've ever seen in my life. And I didn't know what to do. And eventually it just disappeared. But it was just odd, I have to admit. And I wasn't doing a psychic type technique that Angela taught me. It just kind of overlapped a little bit because I was working for these paranormal people doing remote viewing sessions. And it kind of overlapped a little bit and it came in or whatever. But I got to be honest with you, it was out there. It was, I'm not into that whole thing anyways. I'm probably the only remote viewer that, I'm not really a UFO guy or an alien person, but the data sometimes does show up. And I don't know what to think of it because I'm a feedback guy. I want something solid or whatever. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But there is something too when you have a real strange anomaly that happens in a session. There's something weird about it. You can just tell physically and tell emotionally that, oh, this ain't me making something up. This is something odd. I don't know what it is, but it's really weird. I don't know all your psychic techniques you learned. Angela taught me how to channel, how to do basic psychic stuff. She's more into that than I am. That was just part of what I was learning from her. But I gotta say there's a balance I think a remote viewer has to keep of just focusing on, if you're going to do remote viewing session, try to stick to your methodology and not focus on, hey, there's a weird looking being here. I think I'm going to interrogate the being for a while and see what this is all about. And then, I think your mind can go off in a whole different direction, off from the target and stuff. That's my opinion. But I will admit, though, there is something very strange that can happen. And I'll leave it as that.
There's
Jimmy,
a lot of life out there.
Years ago, there was a session done, a group session organized by Janina Dorif, and it was the afterlife, and it's on video, and you can look it up. They present it as about a 5-minute clip, and it describes the angels, the session work, the feelings. Have a look at it. It's really, really interesting.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. I think I saw it on Netflix, I believe.
All right. Yep. It's good.
I will say, though, Daz, you probably know about this. You heard of electronic voice phenomena. I know you know that. There's also another thing called ITC, which is called instrumental transcommunication. I'm not sure if you heard of that before. It's a variation of that. It's with cameras and all kind of stuff. And I got to be honest with you, there is something to it. I dabbled in it for a while, and you can get some weird entity-like stuff on camera. I've showed David Powell some pictures I've taken, and something tells me I'm not sure if we're supposed to go down that route and kind of dabble in that.
I'm surrounded by all these hot, etheric women. They're just outside of my perceptual range. They're all around me.
That's a different story. But I do believe that there is something going on, and I think there is ways. It's maybe rare, but there is.
No, wait a minute, Jimmy. You bought some equipment, that stuff that like produces a voice out of out of the ether.
This is a modern way of doing I think it's called gazing or something. I'm not really sure of the old terms they use. It's just a way of getting data and using a picture. And that's all I did. Angela Ford, she's just into this stuff naturally, I believe. And I'm like, I think I'll try it. She says I'm good at this stuff or whatever. And once in a while, the conditions have to be right. You have to be emotionally right. The atmosphere has to be right. I mean, everything has to be in order. You just can't like all of a sudden just do it. You have to be set up for it, like, or whatever. You know, it's like a cool down or whatever. And then you can, I've had some, I have to be honest, and I'm not into this. There is some weird crap, beings or whatever you want to call it. I mean, I actually have shown David a picture of something that looks like an angel. It looks like it has wings. And I'm like, I don't know.
That you photographed. That you
why
photographed.
It was by me, why it was had affiliation with me, we're still trying to figure that one out. But
I'm saying that it's possible, and you got to leave it open. You know, a good scientist will say
it's just like anything else, like that bent light where that guy was bending light and he was capturing these images. It's just like anything else, like tarot, whatever. This shit just works sometimes. I don't know.
Sometimes it works. It does. It's a little strange because I myself like to just stick the RV method because it seems sane, not crazy or anything. So I just stick with that. But there is an overlap of unusual things and stuff. I mean, we can call it the trickster. I think it's a good name for it.
All right, wait a minute. Back up. What was this picture? Where did you get this angel picture?
I'll send it to you. I'm afraid to like make public a lot of this stuff because I don't want to be labeled as, oh, that's the guy who can odd pictures or weird things and stuff. I'm not
too late.
What was interesting, Don? What was interesting, Don, is it was I can't remember what it was, but when he sent me this picture, it had something to do with. I think it had something to do with what I was working on at the time, session wise, which made it even weirder.
Well, I think Baz will agree. Now, look at when you get into that space of consciousness where you're remote viewing, you're doing psychic stuff. There's an overlap with certain people too. I mean, you sort of like link or something, or certain, ideology or something, whatever. We're not even talking about it. I've had this happen since my near-death experience. I got to be honest with you. It was an odd experience. It happened, but I'm not looking to be the next, Ingo Swann or some kind of super psychic guy. Things just sort of happen, and you kind of make sense of it. And then I don't want to talk about it. Last thing I want to do is, I'm thinking like, I wonder if David how he would think about this if I showed him this picture. And I would show him a dozen pictures. I'm like, dude, I don't know what they are. What's going on? I don't even understand it. But it's some sort of, it's like you're in, I don't know, or you're just getting information or something. I don't understand it.
Well, the thing is, I do agree with you. You don't want to talk about this stuff with just anybody. But I think it's important with the right group that you sort of like, socialize this stuff, because we're all like looking, we're all trying to figure it out.
From what I've seen, anytime you do like a group thing, there's like a sync up of minds that have. I mean, I don't know if it's every time, but it certainly seems like when I've done stuff as a group, it's almost like you guys. There's like a network that just sets up, like connectivity that sets up, and it's like you guys are all going in on this endeavor together. A stacking effect, whatever you call it. The viewer may get this piece, the other viewer gets this piece, the other viewer gets this piece, and now you got the whole thing. However it works, but it's like Daz talks about. It's like the magic of the process. It just comes together.
There seems to be an intelligence.
Yeah, it's a synchronicity and intelligence, and consciousness.
Yeah,
and it's hard to put into words. I mean, it really is. I can't figure this out. Sometimes you're just like, I don't know. I just want to go back to my guitar. But there is something weird that goes on, and I don't enjoy talking about it, to be honest with you, because I think it's a little odd. Because I don't know anybody except in the remote viewing community that will listen and say, I think I know what you're talking about. I kind of, experience it a little bit to this degree, but I certainly don't go around telling my friends and family that you want to see some strange pictures I've taken. I don't know what they all are. What do you think this is?
Yeah, I got to tell you, when I do remote viewing and I get these words that I don't even know what they mean, and I have to look them up, that just amazes me.
That's gold, baby.
Right there.
That's gold right there.
It is. It is. It's really fascinating. I mean, geez.
I mean, David and I have had numerous, you can't believe this type of stuff happen at the same time we're talking about something or whatever. I mean, there's like a phenomenon that happens. And it's not like made up. I mean, if he wants to admit it, we're talking about, that's fine. But
we're sharing the same brain, Jimmy. I think that's part of the problem.
I mean, we joke around about it.
We have a
We
lot in
have,
common.
like-
We talk together. You got two psychics that are constantly talking about shit.
It's like
things start to propagate.
yeah, it's really. I got to be honest with you.
You
It's
do start
strange.
to you start to synchronize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's true. Yeah.
It's happened with us as a group within crypto viewing. I think we realized
Yeah.
that we kind of sync, but you know, it's like when you get a lot of young ladies in the same house together, they synchronize their periods together and stuff.
Oh, right,
I think we're doing a similar kind of biological kind of mechanism there.
Yeah, there's something happening consciousness wise.
Yep.
And then it's just, and it's how you react to it. Like with me, it's like, I don't know what to think of this stuff. I think it's crazy. But then
That's
it's
why
like,
those group projects, Jimmy, it's like, to me, it's almost like the subconsciouses are all getting together. Like,
yeah,
like we're not seeing it, but it's almost like they all kind of congregate. All right, let's get this project done. Let's work together, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. It's like it's all happening at a level that you're not. And then when the project is done, everything just unfolds. You know, if everything goes well, and everything kind of just unfolds like it's supposed to. I love working in groups. It's great because you can see that dynamic happening. It's so evident.
Yeah. Yeah, group work is pretty amazing when you get into a group, several, when you get into groups of people that you actually trust as well. I mean, there has to be a trust level there. And then that's when the magic happens. It really is. Guys, Deborah's had her hand up for quite a long time.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was just going to ask about what we're talking about, because I had a question before the group, on Facebook. I said, I was reading the statement by Ellie, that prohibits the use of Ingo's images and his persona, without permission. And then she said, something about him wanting to eliminate spirituality and religion. And I thought, well, I can agree with the religion part, but him lumping together spirituality and religion all together in the same basket, I could see how you could do that. But, this has kind of been my area of study. And my impression, as I really got into my studies, was that religion is sort of more a procedural thing that doesn't have anything to do with spirituality. And then spirituality is not a ritualistic, performative, outward action. Spirituality is something that's very inward and intuitive and intangible, and, something that religion doesn't really express, especially these days anymore. The meaning for us for me anyway, of my spirituality. So I began to separate the two early on. And personally, I don't have much use for religion, especially anymore. I don't think it fosters spirituality in any way. I think it sort of detracts from it. And I just wonder what you guys all think, because now we're talking about these entities that we experience that are very hard to prove, that have nothing to do with religion. They are subjective, conscious interactions with something we don't know. And I think religion has always been the quest to nail that down, get possession of it, use it for power, definitely, to have power over others, for sure, scare people into submission and stuff like that, which are things I personally dislike about religion, and why I believe I agree with Ingo that it should be discarded in some way, evolved out of, that we don't need someone to tell us how to be spiritual. This is something we already know. And so, that was my question. How do we approach this? We need a language for it. First of all, that's been something I've discovered over the years, is we don't have words to describe what we're experiencing. And those old traditions and ways of describing, they're useful and helpful, but they're not complete. And the language is going by the wayside, in terms of more modern secular terminology and how to define reality. And we need to step up and start creating a language that describes real reality, and not let reality be taken over by positivists who don't believe in spirits at all. The language shapes how far we're able to express what we experience. And if we don't have words for spirituality, we're going to lose it.
I think there are words, though, right? I mean, like one of the first things that, excuse me, remote viewers learn is the word intention. And then how about awareness? These are, I'm going to put those words in the spiritual camp, okay? Being aware is powerful and it opens you, and but you have to do it. You have to become aware. You have to focus in on things. You have to pay attention.
Meditate. And I mean, ancients all meditated as well. This is something that humans, I think, is a natural thing that we need to do with our consciousness, is to focus it and learn how to have accurate perceptions of reality. I was writing about this on Facebook as well, that our brain is evolving to create accurate representations of reality, but it's not all there. And when we talk about the alien consciousness and how expanded it is, I mean, they have more ability with their evolved equipment to experience and reproduce reality more accurately. I mean, now we realize, say, for instance, with X-ray telescopes, that black holes emit radiation when we didn't see that before. And that's what our brain's like. It has some of the equipment to process information about reality, but there's reality that's invisible to us, that our intuition is capable of grasping, and that we need to create a language for. There's some language, it's not coherent. I mean, religions have tried to put together this language, and it's
well, I tend to agree with you, because years ago I started getting into this Asian board game called Go, and the guy who introduced me to the game, there was like a whole language that described the situations that could occur on the board. Okay. And as a beginner, he was just, wiping me out easily. And I didn't understand how. And so I decided to focus in on this thing, and I needed to learn the language. Okay. When I learned the language, all of a sudden, they're concepts, okay, and you can now talk about them in relationship with one another, and so on. So I think that's a very valid point.
It's a huge problem, because we can't talk to each other, and we try to talk to someone who, say, doesn't believe in stuff, a scientist, to enter the scientific dialogue with this stuff. We need to merge them. We need language that brings them together. I've done a lot of studying in science in order to keep up with the conversation and not be left out, because scientists, they just want to ignore us. They don't want to have anything. Sorry, what was that?
Rose, just to clarify, what was the question you wanted to?
So I just wondered what people think about this elimination of spirituality and religion, and if spirituality and religion are different or the same. Personally, I think they're completely different, but other people may think.
Any of you guys have a viewpoint on this one?
Well, I tend to agree precisely with what Rose is saying. Spirituality and religion seem to be two different things.
Religion is for people who are scared of hell, and spirituality is for people who've been there.
I would agree, but Don, I'm more curious as to what kind of drugs they got you on for that eye situation. Anything good, or?
I think it's more like what I find for myself. Okay.
What are you drinking, Dave?
I know some.
Hey, this is Kelly, and I'd offer a couple things. First, I'd like to speak back to the angel speaking, because I'm clairaudient. And it's the first thing you learn is that they don't realize that you can hear them speaking, and you have to tell them, I can hear you, and then they don't ever bother you again. So And the second one on the spirituality, I look at it, you discover spirituality. Spirituality comes to you or it doesn't. But many times it comes to you because you were in a religious environment that is pointing you towards spirituality. Now you achieve spirituality and you're certain that it came to you through that religion, and now you're religious. You would have found it yourself, but
Okay,
they showed it to you.
If I developed any spirituality, it was when I started meditating. It was like I needed to quiet my brain levels so that I could perceive other information.
It's just sitting there waiting.
Yeah.
I think you're lucky if you find spirituality through religion. I think religion can also, at the same time that it can allow the spirituality through, it can also obscure it pretty effectively. So it really depends on the subject and how they're going to interact with religion, and how the religion, whether, some people are abused really badly in religion, and they're abused badly out of religion too. But I am questioning seriously the usefulness of religion at this point. And like I said, I've studied religion at university, as well as, I studied the Bible at university level to the PhD level, and attended church up until the last few years, when I've become completely disillusioned by religion. I'm really saddened that I've, come to this point in my own experience, but I find religion has become, over the last 30 years, as I've experienced it in my country, it has deteriorated in its quality even more. And I feel that it is dead spiritually, the religions here. And I really don't like to say that, but I tried. and when you try to talk spirituality to a lot of the leadership in these institutions, they're afraid. They're afraid of being labeled, and they are labeling each other and punishing each other if any of them want to speak up about something real. If it's fine if they're political. And anyway, just don't get me started, because I could go on. But what I'm saying is religion is, I'm glad that people are able, and I believe I did, through my mom and her religious attendance, opened up a door for me. And again, on the other side of the coin, it closes a lot of doors to spirituality for people. And there's a lot of people that get a lot of hate coming at me because of what religion has done to them. And it's seriously bad. So,
thanks for sharing that, Deborah. And thanks for the question. Paul, you've had your hand up for a while. Is it something to do with this, or is it a new topic?
Well, it's an old topic about deception, but you should finish the topic you're on now before I try to approach that again.
I think we're pretty much, I think everyone's had to say on that one. So if you want to go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think in my view, there's, in my belief, is that when you interact with another entity, you can perceive what they're doing and feeling and saying and so forth in two different ways. One is by just observing what they say, what they telepath, what they act, what their behavior is, what their appearance is. And the other is that you can get into their head and sense their feelings and their emotions and their perception. And so I think the problem of deception and lying is huge. There's no two ways about it. And so you can have somebody that you totally connect with and get a complete story, and the whole thing is a lie because they wanted it to be a lie, and you picked it up and you accurately recorded it as a lie. And the only way, in my view, that you can get around that is you have to get into their head. And once you get into their head, you can merge with them. And once you merge with them, you can sense where they're coming from, what they're feeling, who they are, how their mind works, how their soul works. And if you can do that, then you have the ability to go past deception and go past lying. And so I see that a lot of times when you remote view, if you're just interacting with somebody, you could be accurately recording what they say and do, but it's totally inaccurate information because that's how they're relaying it. You have to get in their head and merge with them, merge with their mind to have accurate stuff. That's my view.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing that. Anyone got anything to add on that one? Lots of nodding faces there.
That's an interesting one. Yeah, I'm just trying to, you have to, if you interview them, you just get what they say. But if you get into their head, you're hearing the truth. Is that what you said, Paul?
Yeah, you have to merge with them. Basically, you have to become one with them, and you're working in their mind and not external to them, and just interfacing with them. You've got to get into them.
Yeah, but the thing is, they could be confused, right? So whether you're talking to them superficially or merged with them, let's use that term, I'm not sure that you're going to necessarily get different information.
Well, I think if you get into their head, you're going to be able to tell if they're crazy or not. If they're confused or crazy or mixed up or a little bit goofy, you're going to know that. Because, unless you're goofy too, but if you're normal and you can tell that they're not normal,
It certainly helps if you do. I don't use the word merge because I don't think that we go to targets in any ways. But you get into the headspace of the life that you're looking at. Absolutely, it does help.
Probe the mind.
I would use caution, to be honest with you. I worked for some exorcist for a while. I had some weird stuff I got out of all that stuff, but I think you need caution because you don't want to have weird things happen around you from a causality of interacting with weird stuff. Yeah. I've experienced it, and I'm not going back to working with 3 priests and a bishop and trying to find out about exorcism shit. I'm done with that stuff. I learned a good lesson, and I've had weird experiences that were negative afterwards. So I'm just sticking to remote viewing. That's it.
But that's why everyone shouldn't be a remote viewer. As people that are training, you have to be a bit cautious on the kind of people that you are training to be remote viewers.
I agree.
Not everyone should be a remote viewer. You can see that in the larger community. There are people that are a bit wrong for the field. They shouldn't be doing it.
You can get a sense of a disturbed human being. You don't have to know that they're doing these. You don't have to get into what they're doing. If you do murder, you do murder cases, stuff like that. You just poke around. You can tell that there's a disturbed human being involved. You don't have to go that deep. You sketch around in stage 4. You just know they're disturbed, and it's kind of enough.
But I also think it's your belief system, isn't it? If you believe you're merging and that they have an influence on you, then you've created that reality, and they can have an influence on you. That's the way how I see it. I just don't believe.
Say that again.
Because all of RV and all of psychic stuff is experiential differently to each individual. It's all based on what your belief system is, what you've built inside you and what you believe. So if you're there as a remote viewer thinking, I'm going to merge with this life form, but this life form could damage me. It could happen. I could take something home. I could be damaged. I could, pick up their feelings and take it with me. If you believe that, you've created your own reality, and that.
Oh, right. Okay.
This is what I say, Don. Like with my I had a lot of suicides in my family around me, and I had sessions that involved that topic, and I'm like, what is going on? It was like something. It was like I was losing control of the mechanism when I would do targets like that. And I finally came to realize that this is a topic that's surrounding me. It was a struggle. It was a hurdle for me. I would literally have myself in a sketch like blocking myself, like don't look at this, because it was something that I just didn't want to. It was something I didn't want to deal with. That's how it came through me. But then eventually I got better at like, look, you have to take a taste of this target. You have to taste it and then put it back down. Put it back down. But you can't know what's there without picking it up, putting it down. I mean, however you want to look at it. But you have to take the taste of whatever is there. But I had a hard time with that because I was surrounded by suicide. But like I said, every individual has their thing. Like I think Lynn, it was like weapons. Like he didn't like weapons. Like he'd be look at a weapons case and he didn't see a weapon in there. It's your individual thing that may be your block. In my opinion, I don't know.
I had that with suicide as well, but it was just bridges and dams, which are like classic remote viewing training targets.
Saddest thing for me, David, was
bridges
suicide.
And dams.
Saddest targets were suicide. For a person to let go of their life, it just was hard for me. It was my toughest targets were suicides.
Why did you get tasked suicides?
Missing people cases, probably.
Yeah, missing people cases.
Okay.
Yeah,
not just
And I had it, but I happened to have a lot of them around my family, my wife's ex, all this. So it took me a while to figure out, because I'm very analytical about it. What went wrong? You know, if something didn't go right, what went wrong? Let's plug the holes. And I quickly realized that I don't want to look at this stuff. I just don't want to see it. But once I came to that conclusion, I kind of made some kind of resolve within myself. Like, look, this is my job. You just have to look at it. Put it back down. You don't have to live it. And that's kind of how I worked it out.
Yeah. It's definitely, you create your own reality. And Don, have you read any of the books or the papers on the hitchhiker effect?
Yeah.
Because, it's pretty much good science now that in the latest series of Skinwalker as well, Skinwalker Ranch, they're doing experiments with this, which tally on to the hitchhiker effect, in that these kind of paranormal effects like the hitchhiker effect and any kind of psychic disturbance or effect, it's individual in nature. So you may get one person coming along and their belief system means that nothing happened, there is no effect. 5 minutes later you get another person come along, they got a slightly different belief system, something's different inside of them. And that creates the effect or allows the effect to happen. Because
I've never heard it explained that way. I just the stuff that I read was he went home and his family started experiencing these wolves out in the backyard or some standing on two legs and running around and looking at them intently.
Yeah, it happens like in all kind of various cases. Like there's a famous one. It includes the hitchhiker stuff, but one of the guys that have been studied for the hitchhiker effect, Peniston, he was involved in the Rendlesham Forest UFO kind of event, 1980, just outside of London. He allegedly touched a craft and then had all these symbols in his head, all kinds of communications with aliens, all that kind of stuff. But several other people were with him, and nothing like that happens to him. It's different. It's different for all of us based on our belief systems. Maybe not just our belief systems, but everything that makes us who we are as an individual. Maybe a bit of our religious beliefs, our spirituality, our upbringing, our intent, the things we've done in life, our jobs. Maybe all that culminates in us having a certain belief system, which then creates our reality. And it's the same with voodoo. The people that really believe voodoo works are the ones that it actually works for them. And the same with witchcraft and stuff as well.
All right. So this gets back into this discussion where you as a mental being, a mental energy, I have decided that, if you think long and hard about something long enough, you can actually spin up your own sort of like life form.
A tulpa.
Yeah. And, to sort of what Dave was talking about there, you don't want them messing with your RV. I mean, like, if you've created this thing, it can't be in the way of you trying to perceive accurate information. And the problem is, how many of these little tulpas have we all got floating around us right now? Because we've all been thinking for, years about different things.
Yeah. Could you guys give me the definition of a tulpa, please? Sorry, what is that?
It's a deliberately created thought form.
I got you. Okay.
Yeah. And it can take any shape, but it's like
there's plenty of
living
accidentally
thing.
created ones too.
Because look,
it's
I
more
run
like a
into
computer
this-
program than a being, though.
I run into when I get into like a really esoteric target that, like, basically a place I should not be at, a guy shows up. And look, I don't consider myself very religious. Maybe spiritual. I figure there's a source, this and that. But a guy shows up, and he's a typical, look at, like, Dave's laughing, guy in sandals. I mean, look, not somebody I would expect. Okay. So look, my basic what I'm telling you is I'm getting shit that I don't believe consciously. Like, I don't even believe my own shit. Okay, this God is showing up to either get in between me and something else, or to kind of to ward me off of something. It really, I don't even believe my own shit, but yet it happens on really weird targets. So yeah, I just want to throw that out there.
Well, the universe is bigger than you individually, mind.
I think there's a nice Carl Jung quote to answer the question there, Dave, which is, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate.
Ooh, I like that.
Nice one, Dave. I like it.
Yeah, I like Dave's style.
There's a topic about detoxing after an intense session, and that kind of implies that you can get into an objective topic or into an entity topic so deeply that you're adversely toxically affected. And so I'm just wondering, other than detoxing after the end of a session, is there a way to protect yourself during the session so that if you are what I call merging with somebody who could be, quite toxic to you, is there a way to protect yourself other than just ending the session and going through detox?
Somebody asked this on the Discord earlier, and there isn't like this one simple hack that remote viewers don't want you to know, because the answer is to know yourself extremely well. Going back to that Jung quote, you have small t trauma, not necessarily big T trauma, but small t trauma, unconscious. There's so much stuff floating around in our unconscious mind, which is pushing us this way, nudging us that way, making us react in ways that don't seem rational, that we can't quite understand because we don't have visibility on that. And that stuff is the mechanism by which you get triggered, So if stuff is really affecting you, it's because you have a blind spot, right? So the solution is to go and dive into your subconscious mind, dive into your trauma, dive into everything that you don't want to experience from your memory of your whole life, and even the stuff you can't remember. Go and dig it all out. And the more of that work you do, the less this stuff will affect you. That said, some things are fucking weird. Like for the Cypher podcast, we did the Grand Canyon, and like that we all had deeply weird shit going on. Like,
as far as the origin of what caused the canyon, you're saying, Dave?
No. It was the tasking was the most interesting archaeological site in the Grand Canyon. And where we went from there was just like interdimensional woo-woo creatures messing with the locals, and portals, and like
really enjoying your guys'
pulled
podcast.
off, and it was just insane.
Yeah.
The whole thing was crazy. But there was real legit sketchy psychic woo-woo stuff. I don't even know what to call it. That was there. That stayed with all of us. I felt god awful for 2 weeks. Brett's fiance was seeing weird things flying through the apartment, and she's not a remote viewer.
Wow.
Emily got like a migraine just editing the podcast, and she wasn't even remote viewing it. She just tasked it and edited it, and like all of us were having all of these kind of weird negative effects from all this crazy. Like I talked to some of these things, and Brett talked to a different one, and like this was, I don't know, maybe it's not real, maybe we made it all up, maybe it's all a thought form, I don't know, but that whole target was a shit show. Don't go remote viewing that stuff. It's horrible. And as to what you do to protect yourself from that, I don't know. If I'd known in advance, maybe like cast a magic circle, burn some sage. I'm really I'm scant on options as to what to do about that, because it messed all three of us up and it was horrendous.
I just want to say, David, I love the podcast, by the way. I just want to tell you guys that. You guys are doing great work over there in Cypher.
Oh, thanks. Well, there's not going to be any more Cypher. Emily's gone off to do bigger and better things, unfortunately. But there will be more media projects from Brett and myself. So
I like your original answer, though, there, David, about, to protect yourself, you have to know yourself. You have to be able to separate what you're experiencing
if you know yourself
from.
Really well, then when things are not you know it, right? But
you do.
If you don't know yourself, things can trigger stuff in there, and you think, "Shit, that's me." You internalize it, you identify with it, you identify as it, you become it, and then you are. I don't know what's the opposite of detoxed. Toxed.
Yeah. After the method, that's all that's left. In my mind, is you're getting better and better at knowing how you process information and how you react to it. I mean, that to me, that's like after you get the method down, that's what it's all about. Is getting to know yourself and how you react to information.
Yeah, the one target that I had that sort of falls into this category when I was dealing with the life form, he was having, all of these sadistic thoughts in a way that seemed like it was fun. And I had to step back for a moment and say, that's not me. This is something else. Okay. You have to recognize that. And that's exactly what David said. You have to know yourself.
But you were lucky enough to be able to do that. This is kind of leads to what I was saying earlier. Not everyone should be remote viewing. There are huge amounts of people that are trying remote viewing that don't have the capability to determine what's not them.
Right, but I really like what David said. I think you need to know yourself, and and how do you do that? How did I learn to do that?
Not within remote viewing. You don't need to find out if you can cope with that when you're remote viewing a serial killer.
Yeah.
No. When I first blew the doors open psychically, I ended up feeling somebody else's negative stuff and negative emotions and things. And at that time, I didn't believe that it was possible to do that. Right? It wasn't an option on my list of what could possibly be going on here that I was feeling somebody else's stuff, because that's crazy, right? With hindsight, that's what was happening. But it was like really unpleasant, intrusive thoughts that seemed very uncharacteristic to me, but because they were in my head and my feelings and my space, we're used to experiencing things there and going, well, that's me. And then we identify with them, and then that's really upsetting because they're horrible. But when you realize that's not me, and you can separate them out, it's just like, oh, that's horrible. I'm going to change the channel.
Okay, David,
easy.
Listen to this. Okay, have you ever had a hypnotist hypnotize you covertly and then speak through your mouth? Actually talk through you? Because I had that happen. I went to a hypnotist to ask for help because I've been stalked by hypnotists, and I've been hypnotized covertly many times. And this woman spoke through my mouth, put words in my mouth without my permission or consent. She was brilliant. She was really good. And she showed me what hypnotists can do and verified, what I was saying, but didn't seem to be a way that she could come up with to directly address it or help me in any way. But I've had to figure it out for myself. But I mean, that's a human being doing that, not even a
I very much doubt somebody would be able to do that to me, because I don't.
Well, you'd be surprised, because I was really shocked. I was told, I couldn't believe it. Like a lot of these things that just hypnotists are able to do are quite magical, in my experience. But so why not?
They can only do it to susceptible people, though, can't they? They can't do it to everyone.
Well, it depends, because you might not think you're susceptible, and I didn't think I was that susceptible. I mean, this was an afternoon in broad daylight I went to her office with a non-disclosure agreement for what I wanted to talk to her about, which she wouldn't sign. And she just showed me in very short order that, if I wanted to go up against hypnotists, I didn't know what I was doing, and I was completely vulnerable, and it was very intimidating and upsetting to deal with her, and there's nothing I can do. But there are people that are capable of this, let alone spirits, is what I'm trying to say. Like, this is something that can be done. It can be
I think
demonstrated.
if a spirit can do it to you, a person can do it to you, and vice
I
versa.
think so, yeah.
Well,
I
that's
mean,
What we should aim to be is people who are not vulnerable.
As
to
a
that.
professional hypnotist, I can confirm what you say.
really,
I mean, it's just what gurus do, though, isn't it? You know, they kind of get you into their way of being, and you become a follower of them.
I mean, I've read a little bit about some Buddhist temples where they get very in sync, and they have a rapport where they're practically reading each other's minds, finishing each other's sentences, thinking each other's thoughts. These things are all very possible. They do this in the serious.
In Zen Buddhism, it's not uncommon for a teacher to read their student's mind just to get them to chill out about the idea of separation.
Yeah, this is
I occasionally read people's minds on Discord. If it's just like, why haven't you replied to my email? And there's one person who I'm not going to name. He's not here. But he's terrible for rephrasing his messages. And you just see so-and-so is typing for like half an hour. And after a while, you just get bored. And it's like, what do you want to say? Come on, let's just remote view it quickly. And it's a real time saver. That distinction isn't really there.
We got some hands up. Dave, your hand up first. You want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I don't know where it came in along the line. Would it came from deciphering information? I thought we were talking about this. I can't remember where, but I don't know how HRV was taught or TRV was taught. I only know from what I was gotten. The way Paul taught me, everything is within this bracket of, okay, the aperture is this wide, so now you get just this amount of information. Okay, so when I get information in stage 4, if it's like this, it's probably an AOL signal or an AOL. And if you just get this, that's a tangible or an intangible. That's the way it was described to me. So that's all. I guess that's all. Oh, one more question, Rick. You're a hypnotherapist. Do you do a lot of past life stuff? Does that stuff come up a lot?
Yep.
Really? What's that like? I mean, is it very, very? You find it very, like it's legit or what?
Yeah, but the thing is with this, unless you do a bit of research, it's still not verifiable. There's been a lot of cases where past life has been verifiable, and documentaries have been put up about it by people turning over flagstones that have been buried for 100 years, and on the base of it there's a map. I mean, how would they know this from like 100 years hence? So yeah, my book's past life is good. It's a valuable tool. Helps people these days.
So let me ask you this: if I went to a hypnotherapist, because they don't seem to advertise. Because I've looked at this literally, like I was curious as if there's a past life situation going on, but it's not like they advertise, "Hey, you want to know your past life? Come to this hypnotherapist." It's
those QHHT people do.
Oh, okay.
They do that all day. You can go on YouTube and listen to people pretending to be Jesus. It's absolutely cringe-inducing. It's terrible.
Yeah. Don't get tricked into being fooled by, oh yes, you're this, you're that, the other. I mean, you could be some mundane person, but there's still
everybody's Napoleon, everybody's Cleopatra. Nobody's ever the fucking street sweeper.
I know I'm somebody important. I could just tell you that I can feel it in my bones.
Doesn't this just show us though that all it is everyone just tapping into the collective kind of unconsciousness, all this information?
Yeah.
It might not be your past life.
Rick,
it might just be information.
I want to do it, Rick. I want to check it out. So you tell me as a hypnotherapist.
Yeah, give me a shot and we'll do a one-on-one and we'll do some regression. Okay.
I would love that. I want to hook back up with you too, Rick. After this, I want to hook back up with you guys. If you're doing anything, if you're interested, I'm up to it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no problem.
So
Jimmy,
Rick, did you? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Don. Ask your question.
I was just going to say, did you get into any of that past life regression stuff, Rick?
Did I get into any of it personally? Yeah. I started past life stuff about 20 years ago when a lady piqued my interest who came over from the US, a lady by the name of Denise Lynn. She's written some books, did some tapes, and the first tape that I got hold of and listened to, it was mind-blowing. I was laying in the chair listening to this, and the whole body began to vibrate. And I just sat there thinking, this is cool. I didn't know what it was. I'm just thinking, holy shit, the whole body's vibrating. And then the next thing you know, it was like a full screen of me or this individual on this dusty road in Hessian type clothing, carrying this heavy book. It was very powerful stuff. And consequently, I went on and hypnotherapy, clinical hypnotherapy. People request that, ask me that. It's not my prime directive there. It's dealing with clinical stuff, as I say. But people come to me and say, do you do past life? And I say, sure, no problem. So there's a little bit.
As a hypnotherapist, are you guys kind of like shy about it? Do you guys like, well, yeah, but under the table? No,
not at all, not at all. Far from it. I mean, there are people come in as a last resort for things, but they come in with a question mark. So you have to give them information about hypnosis, what it is, what it does, and how you're going to do it to wipe that question mark off their radar, and then they relax and they become more comfortable because they have that knowledge. It's like anything. You don't know how to work a coffee machine, you have that question mark until you've operated it a couple of times. Wham, that question mark's gone. It's the same with people not knowing about hypnosis.
So is it true that you really can't get into a previous life on just one session? You have to do multiple times in order to
You've got to spend at least $5,000, Don. Otherwise, it's just not going to work.
I actually did have one regression.
I'm starting a GoFundMe.
But but I had read that the best results were like when they visited the hypnotherapist several times in a row, and it's sort of like the aperture opening kind of a thing. I was just wondering if you experienced that, Rick.
Yeah, what happens is with hypnosis, general hypnosis, the more times you see somebody, the more they drop down into hypnosis, the wider the aperture comes, and the more accessible they are to it, the more open they are, and they'll be more receptive. So if it's seeing somebody like 2 or 3 times, that's normally sufficient for me. And then go and do some regression work. Fantastic.
Let me ask you this, Rick. Is it all one mechanism? Is it all one psychic mechanism operating the hypnagogic, operating the past life regression, the psychic mechanisms, the remote viewing? Is it all one mechanism? Is it all coming from the same place?
Put that in a queue. Daz can give you the session to do.
Well, it is a good question, though, isn't it? Because you can task a load of remote viewers and they'd get the same information as you'd get out of a hypnotic session. So is it real, or is it just information that's everywhere?
No, it's real. It's definitely real.
Is it though?
Hey, I'm full of good questions. You guys could reach me 24 hours a day.
I charge people $5,000. That's just absurd money. There was one lady that did come in and say, "Yeah, I paid a couple of $1,000s," and I just went, "What?" So there are people out there who are a bit naughty, charging huge amounts for something which is if you haven't got feedback,
we can say the same about remote viewing, though.
Sounds familiar.
If you can get feedback.
Wait a minute. Are you guys talking about my life story?
Oh dear.
People want to go.
If anybody's paid more for education in this room, I want to know. If anybody's paid more for remote viewing education, you better tell me, because I want to know where to get it. I paid with the scholarship quite a bit of money.
You got Jim Beam there.
Dave is having way too much fun tonight.
I'm sorry, Johnny Walker, Black Label, only the best.
No, but this is all good, valid questions, though, isn't it? You know, when with a serious side, yeah.
I'm just being cheeky. I'm sorry, guys. Just having fun.
Oh well, maybe we'll do some hypnosis when we get to London.
Shh, Rick, that's meant to be private.
Oh,
I didn't get invited to that, Rick. So
okay.
Just tell everyone.
Oh, shit.
That's it. I'm going.
I'm going.
Jimmy, you've had your hand up for a while. Do you want to go next?
I'm still on topic, Daz. I went myself after my near-death experience. I had terrible nightmares. Everybody knows my story. I got hit by a tornado in my home, whatever. And I had constant nightmares. So I said, I'm going to do anything to get rid of these goddamn nightmares. And they sent up, because the state, had nurses and whatever, helped people. And I went to a hypnotherapist, and I probably, if I didn't have the experience I have, wouldn't believe in it. But I got hypnotized. And I had 2 sessions. The first session, I actually had an out-of-body experience during it. I was so deeply down that I went to one of the places I actually work, I have a contract with, and I was walking around the building, and I thought it was real. It wasn't until the hypnotist, did her count back, or whatever it's called, that she got me out of it. And I was in motion sickness for about 20 minutes. I couldn't believe it. I was shocked. And she says, what happened? And I said, I don't know. I was at a work building, walking around, looking at stuff, talking to people, blah, blah, blah. And she said, oh my God, she said, I got you out too soon. I should have waited a few more minutes or something along that line. So I said, well, I don't know what happened. She said, you had an out-of-body experience. I said, what? What? I'm not into all this stuff. So it was new to me. So I drove myself home. I felt seasick, like I was motion sickness. I get home. My wife's saying, how'd you make out? Is the nightmares going to go away now? It's like, I don't know. I had an out-of-body experience now. I said, I don't know what to do. So I had another session with her. I went again. And this time, besides the hypnotherapy, she did reflexology on my legs or something, my feet or something, to calm my nervous system down, help with the terrible nightmares. And again, apparently I'm an easy person to get hypnotized. I went again back to another building someplace else. I was floating around, and it felt real to me. And then she got me out again. I came out, and she said, what happened this time? And I was at another building talking away and blah, blah, blah. She said, you're so lucky. Because your near-death thing must have completely rearranged your nervous system, where you're open to everything and blah, blah, blah. But I would never have believed unless I experienced it. And I have to be honest, there's something to it. It's not, I didn't make this up.
Jimmy, tell her the whole story.
Which one?
Jimmy was Mary Todd, Abraham Lincoln's wife, in a previous life.
Yeah. I'm going to hold up some of them stories for later on. But I have to admit, there's something to it. Just like remote viewing, it's kind of hard to explain. It happens and whatever. But when I go back, she wanted to see me again. And I said, no, I had enough out-of-body experiences. That was it for me. And I never went back. But I have a tape she recorded and of the session, how she, walked me through it, whatever. And I don't know. I was just answering her. I didn't remember it. But when I listened to the tape again, I can go right down to, I don't know what it's called. Rick probably have an answer better than I do. A deep relaxation or something. And then you just, bam, you're gone. And then you come back. And it's
that wasn't near-death experience though, Jimmy. I mean, your house collapsed in on itself. I mean,
the near-death experience was the best feeling I've ever had in my life. I wish I could do it again. I told you, like we talked before, Dave, I'm not afraid of death at all. It's so natural. And you feel so good. You literally don't feel nothing, but you can see everything. It's the greatest high I've ever experienced. And I've experienced a few being in a rock band.
So I just want to...
And it's Friday today, and I'm feeling pretty good. So it's real.
As a carry on from that, Jimmy, a quick question for everybody. Has anybody else had something similar or an accident or something that shook up their whole body, maybe got electrocuted badly or
a near-death experience?
Well, not necessarily a near-death experience, but something that came close to it. Maybe a bad trauma or something like that.
Yeah,
I had a bad fall.
I had, I think I mentioned this story before, but when I was a little kid, playing in the attic, I found a screwdriver and I was like looking for something that I could turn. I was like a little, 3-year-old or something. And, I found the electrical socket there that has a cover plate with a screw in the middle. All right. So I start going for that screw, and I hear in the back of my mind, his motor skills aren't sufficiently developed. I didn't even know what that meant. And the next thing I knew, I was getting the shock. But what was that?
Good point in question. Reason why I asked this, I'm searching for a commonality. If there have been other people that's had similar sort of experiences to what I had as a youngster, being in the UK, 6 years of age, go and play in the park. We were visiting friends, so off play in the park, climb the fence. In the UK, we have electric railway lines. So Muggins here went, oh, that's a bit rough, touching the rough line. And then the other one was a bit more attractive, touched the smooth line, and I got dragged onto the railway lines, and I was being shaken around and electrocuted until my shoes touched the side, and I was laying down. I was literally thrown up in the air.
Wow.
And burnt from head to toe, all down my arms, scars, legs, and it just went through the whole body.
Wow.
Rick, I don't know if this helps, but I was in an HRVG group recently, and we hadn't all had NDE, but we did remember that we had all been electrocuted. And so that was a strange commonality.
Could you just go over that again? There was some loud banging there. I didn't know what
Somebody had a guitar, it sounded like.
I was just saying that I was in an HRVG group, the Hawaiian Remote Viewing Guild, and we discovered just by happenstance in the conversation that we had all been electrocuted at some point in our childhood. So we hadn't all had NDEs, but we all had been electrocuted. So that was a really weird commonality that we shared because it's not a common experience. So I don't know if that helps for your data collection, but.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. It's just that, if you feel like on an island and not many people talk about it because there's not many remote viewers around here. It's something like when I get on this sort of thing and chat, and it's just, as you say, data collection. See if there's any other people who had a similar sort of experience. But yeah, thanks for that.
When I was young, Rick, I stepped in a yellow jacket's nest. I almost was a very little kid, and I don't know, just it kind of rings to mind when you say that. But just real quick, yeah, I guess that's it. Yeah, yeah, that's about it.
Okay.
Well, Rick, I had a really bad fall that resulted in my being disabled with chronic pain from a horse. And when I hit the ground so hard, seriously bounced out of my body. Like I bounced up a couple feet into the air and I felt it like, woo, and I'm up and I looked over at the barn. You can see clearly, everything was clear. And then I fell back into my body. And I'm laying there, I can't move, I'm completely paralyzed. And my arms are stretched out like this. And I wasn't looking at my right arm, but it felt like it was bent like this. Like if I wasn't looking at it, my arm was bent. And then I looked over at it and it was actually flat. And then I had this very weird sensation that my arm kind of unbent and went back into my arm, sort of, and then it took about a half an hour before I could move again. I had to go to the hospital on a backboard, and then I was in pain after that. But that bounce out of my body, what was that. And I've heard some people talk about when they had a stroke, they had the same kind of experience where they expanded out of their body. So I don't know if that's helpful, but that's an experience.
Rick.
So I was wondering if I could ask you if you could help me with my hypnosis. I sent you a private message with in case you think you might be able to help me with this hypnosis problem, because I've been looking for something. That would be so awesome. Thanks.
Rick, I'm wondering what you're asking about people who've had NDEs or serious experiences like this. What is the commonality between people which you're wondering whether is it remote viewers have all had a serious accident or an NDE or something weird, or?
Yeah, I suppose I'm just sort of searching a little bit to see if there is some kind of link, be it accidental, whether it be planned or whether it be whatever, as though it's like a coming together. This has happened because, and look where we've all ended up. There's a link there because we've experienced near-death experiences. We've been electrocuted. We've been putting screwdrivers in the wall. Whatever, trauma being bounced off a wall. There's something maybe there.
For me personally, which might be too far out for you and other people, but I find if you stop thinking of time as linear, then it all becomes much easier to understand and makes much more sense.
Rick, I'll share something that I very rarely ever talk about because it's kind of out there. During my near-death experience, my grandmother, who was deceased for about 10 years, showed up and started talking to me. And she told me future events, which all came true. And I thought I died. I literally thought, because I couldn't hear anything. I had no sense of any time. I was covered in debris from my house inside. And I could see things, the rescue people moving around and shit. But I thought I died because she was telling me stuff. And I thought, oh my God, this is it. I died in a tornado. Here I'm covered in debris. I see the rescue people. And I'm thinking, well, this is it then. I can't believe I died in a tornado. Nobody's going to believe this. And then she's telling me stuff about, I didn't see her, but I heard her voice and I smelled her perfume. And she was telling me stuff about, Jimmy, you had to go through this. I'm sorry, but don't worry. Everything's going to work out fine for you. You're going to get everything you wanted in your house, the new roof, new siding, whatever. And she was very comforting and stuff. And I'm thinking, well, where are you? I can't see you. I can see everything else going on, which was chaotic and stuff, but I didn't hear anything except her voice. And then from there, after about, say, 8-10 minutes, I was rescued. I got jolted back into, I guess, reality at the time. And I got rescued and got, brought out of the debris and stuff, whatever. And my wife at the time was downstairs in the basement still. And she came up and she says, what were you doing, with all the debris? How come you didn't try to get yourself out of all the debris and stuff? And I said, I don't know. I was frozen in fear and I thought I had died or something. It was very real. And then eventually I got help and stuff. And that's when they told me I had a near-death experience. I actually never heard of one before. I'm not into this metaphysical side, but it was real to me. And everything she said came true within like a year. She gave me 3 things and they all came true. And, it's hard for me to admit. I just recently experienced again on the date of the tornado, a odd event, which I shared with David Powell, which was my wife on May 31st said to me, I'm next to the pool, I want to take her picture. And she took my picture with her camera and I walked away and she said, oh my God, you're not in the picture. And I just started laughing because I have weird phenomena that happens with electronics, cameras, just weird stuff. And I just started laughing because she says, I don't know. I took the picture of you. You're not in it. I said, well, that's because I'm still dead. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I bought my truck back dozens of times. It's brand new. It cost me $40,000. I had nothing but electric problems with it since I had it. I bring it back. They look at it and they said, there's nothing wrong with your truck. What are you doing to it? I said, I'm not doing anything. Radios don't work. TVs don't work. Lights blow out. They don't work. I got rewired somehow during that one event. And it's hard to to talk about it because it's so strange and odd, because other people around me, when they experience something they see, or they say, wow, that was weird. How did you do that? I didn't do anything. It's weird. And I have to admit, it's, unless I was in this group with people that are open-minded, I wouldn't be talking about any of this at all. I'd be saying, I'm not going to talk about it. I think I'm nuts. So
no, I hear you on that. I hear you exactly, because to give you an example, key cards, hotel key cards. You swipe it, you get in, bang. I was in Carlsbad a few years ago with Dave Morehouse. Put it in my top pocket, went down, came back after a few hours, went to swipe it, nothing. What the hell's broken key card? Down to the front desk, recharge it, go back. 4 times this happened. Anyway, it turns out that if I put it in my top pocket, I wipe key cards, period. 4 times.
And I think this kind of relates to remote viewing in the sense of it's kind of a mystery about how it works. Like, we don't know how it actually works, remote viewing. But then there's the other side of like, hey, if this can work, what about other phenomena and stuff? And you haven't expected. I would never believe half the stuff that happened to me. Somebody said something. I was like, oh my God, the poor person's got mental illness. I experienced so many weird things after that damn near-death thing. I'm kind of happy, and I kind of like, I hated it. But now I'm older now. It's been like 20 years, but I still experience phenomena. I mean, just weird things with people. And I'm not trying to do anything. I'm not looking for attention about this at all. I never talk about this, only in this group. And it's a weird way. I got to be honest, it's a weird way of living, because when everybody else is, not talking like this or having these bizarre experiences, and and you're trying to be normal, and then you walk away and it's like, man, I think I just broke the guy's radio or something. Or I just, I didn't mean to break her kitchen lights. It went out again. It's weird stuff, and you're just like, I don't know. I'd rather be by myself playing my guitar.
Hey, how many here are trying to be normal? All right, I mean, like, there's a lot of us here, Jimmy.
Yeah. We are the normal ones.
It makes you think about how much of your brain or consciousness you're using. I mean, I was never like this before 1998 at all. If you knew me, I'd be like, remote viewing, what? What are you talking about? The psychic stuff, what? And then when you're forced into it, I didn't ask for this. I didn't want to have this experience at all. But when it happens to you, it's kind of hard not to deny the actual experiences when you got people. How did you do that? Like, what? I hit all of Angela Ford's targets. She said, I'm the only person to ever hit them all. And she said, that's awesome. I'm going to have you hook up with Ed May now. He wants some money and some remote viewing targets, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, I'm so new at it. I don't want her to do anything. I was like denying that. And instead of saying, oh my God, absolutely, yes, I was like the opposite, because I didn't want the attention. And, I want to be left by myself, because it's so weird in my world to to experience stuff. And it's not once in a while. And I'm not bragging at all. I'm just saying it's kind of consistent with me. I mean, David Powell has experienced weird shit around me when we're talking and stuff. Other people too, and it's just bizarre. And I don't know what to say other than there's something going on, like remote viewing. There's something going on. That's it. Now I'm going to
following on from the previous that I put forward, the people here at any time, we're not remote viewing, at any time when they're relaxing in bed, on the couch, when they close their eyes, do they have any spontaneous, what I call visuals, that are 3D, full color, and you feel like you're there? Maybe with your partner in embrace or whatever, or you're driving a car or parked up a car, whatever it is. Anybody gets any visuals? Or when you go to bed? Anybody have that?
Yeah, but the thing is, this is a dream state. And
no, it's not a dream state. This is when you just merely close your eyes and you're in a situation that maybe gives you a feeling or a sensation, whether you're holding somebody's hand or whether you're stroking the cat or whatever. I'm not talking about dreams. I'm just talking about simply closing your eyes and how there's this visual that is in full 3D and color?
Wow. No.
Nope.
No.
I've had it
Yeah,
either
I've had
side of
some weird-
sleep.
I've had some weird experiences like that. And I'm just I think I have to be honest with you. I have told only a few people, I believe I'm dead. Actually, I died in and that I'm living like some sort of afterlife. And this is part of the afterlife. I really believe it because my life has.
And you're stuck here with us?
Yeah.
I'm in hell.
Jimmy's in
Yeah, I died before you did.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe we're all dead.
Nothing makes sense. Like, it just doesn't make sense anymore. And, and it's just weird. I don't like it. I have to be honest with you. I'm not a fan of it, but it happens. And it's like, nobody's going to believe this. I'm just going to keep it to myself. That's all.
Wait, you say you're going to keep it to yourself, but this usually does go on YouTube.
Not today. It's Friday, Daz, and I've been listening to a lot of Van Halen, if you know what I mean.
I like Jimmy when he goes. Jimmy goes, I'm not into this stuff, but I'm a remote viewer. I see angels. I've had OB.
I'm not into it though. I'm not into it.
I'm not into any of this stuff.
Yeah, I'm not.
I do have a medical marijuana card, Daz. Yeah, I only
didn't realize remote viewing was a medical condition.
Yeah, that's right. I'm out of the picture now.
I've had one or two of these strange kinds of what I would call visions, where I'm suddenly sort of overwhelmed by a full 3D colorful situation, and everything else seems to fade out of the focus. I had one of those when I was in a shelter, and I was, debating whether I was going to walk away from my faith. It was kind of a significant moment, because I was in a shelter and I was kind of upset with the way my life was going. And maybe my faith was not doing anything for me. And I was thinking about just walking away. And suddenly it was like a door opened in the fabric of space-time. And it was a large door about 10 feet tall, and this beings came out of it. This one really tall being, about 10 feet tall. And there were other beings with him, but they were out of focus. He was the focus, and he was right above me. And he had a face that was bright, so bright that I couldn't see the face. It was just a light. And then above the head was this, it was like a kind of a whirling torus of lightning, like a crown, and it was spinning. And I thought of it, me being a Christian, I'm thinking, well, this is the crown of thorns without any thorns. But it was this light, this being made of light. And he had this gown, this long, and above this torus of lightning was some star field. So that when this thing moved, the whole star field moved with it. It was a very impressive thing. I don't know exactly what it was. For years, I interpreted that this was a form of Jesus that appeared to me. I thought it was, it very felt that this being told me I'm the judge, which is basically all they said. So for me, I, quickly interpreted that I was experiencing some form of Jesus, but seriously, not sure what it was really. There are, since I've discovered the Council of Nine, I didn't know they existed, and this being seems to fit more one of those types of beings, but maybe Jesus is attached to that. But anyways, I did have that experience with very full color, and I was transported, and then I fell to the ground, like my body went limp, and I was, experiencing a lot of emotions, but then I sort of came out of it and it all dissipated. But it wasn't like a hallucination, because hallucinations are a lot more fleeting and not as all encompassing and full color and seemingly real as this was. Like, I don't count it as a hallucination because it was too intense and vivid, like a waking dream. That's the most intense one and memorable one I've ever had, but I've had others and I can't explain them, honestly. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I understand.
Daz, I got to run. I appreciate it. Thank you. Listen, check your messenger, okay? I'm going to prove to you what I experienced.
All right. Anyway, guys, I think we're going to wrap it there because it's been nearly 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
And I want to say thanks,
that was fabulous.
for chatting, saying all you did, asking questions, all that kind of stuff. And it's been a fun evening.
Good time.
Excellent, guys. Well, we'll do this again soon. Have a great weekend out there. And we'll see you on the Facebook pages and all that kind of stuff for more projects.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Daz.
Take care, everyone.
Have a good one,
Good
guys.
to see you
Good
guys.
night.
I'll be
Bye.
in touch.
Bye-bye.
I'll be in touch. Nice
Bye.
to see you. Nice to meet you.